Welcome, welcome. It is Wednesday, October the 22nd. This is Hurricane Hub Live. I'm Chief Meteorologist Tim Pandages. Thanks for joining us on 13 News Now. Plus, now the big headline, of course, with HHL tonight is going to be Tropical Storm Melissa, and just exactly what it will do, where it will track, and how strong this storm will get. Now, most recent forecast that came out earlier today, that's what we're going to focus on tonight on HHL. It's become a forecast to be a major hurricane as we get on into the next couple of days. Now, at the 11 o'clock advisory today, it was forecast to become a major Cat 3. Then at 5 o'clock, that was up to a Category 4. And I'm going to make my case in this video why I think this could be our third Category 5 storm of the season. And there's only one other season that has had more than 2 Category 5 storms. And that's our trivia question, so we'll get to that a little bit later. But also potentially major impacts to land. Now, our other 2 Cat 5s this year did not impact land. This one most likely will, at least cause some major impacts to places like Jamaica, Cuba, and Haiti as we go through the rest of this weekend into the upcoming weekend. And we'll touch briefly on the Eastern Pacific. There's some activity out there, but nothing named at the moment. Here's a look at our season overall, 2025. We had Barry in the Southern Gulf, and then Melissa, the only storm so far to build on through the Caribbean. So right now, that environment is untapped. Now, right now, Melissa has pretty much plateaued. Since we talked about this storm last night, no changes in intensity. Still a 50-mile-per-hour tropical storm with gusts to 65, moving to the west at 1 mile per hour. That's probably the biggest change since yesterday. When we talked yesterday, I think it was moving at 15 miles per hour off to the west. Now it is slowed down to a crawl. You could outrun this storm, and it's forecast to potentially even just stall out and remain stationary for a prolonged period of time. Now, what's happening? Well, we've got upper-level winds screaming in from the west here, causing some significant wind shear on the system. The surface low is actually displaced well to the west, and all the surface convection, or all the upper-level convection, is getting blown off or displaced to the east. So it is vertically tilted, and it's still maintaining a tropical storm status. Now, eventually, the wind shear will relax, and once that happens, that's when we expect some explosive intensification out here as it's sitting over bathwater. Wait until I show you the sea surface temperatures out in this part of the Caribbean. So here is that wind shear screaming in from the west, and that is causing the whole system to remain tilted there. You can see the lower level center kind of exposed off to the west here. So it's almost outrunning its upper level features that are displaced off to the east there currently. But again, that wind shear is forecast to break down. It's going to build off to the west in an even more favorable environment in the next couple of days, and we do expect some explosive intensification here. Look at the sea surface temperatures in the 90s. Very, very warm, and on top of that, that warm water extends down to a depth. And look at the forecast track. Now, yesterday, this was leaning more in a north to eventually northeast direction, still moving over some very high ocean heat content. But now it's forecast to drift to the west, and notice what lurks in this part of the Caribbean. Some of the highest ocean heat content in the entire basin. Now, remember when we talked about Umberto and Aaron, those both tracked over similar areas well to the north and east here. Now, that was in an environment that did have some relatively high ocean heat content, but probably half as what we have here. So likely going to see this system overperform once that wind shear relaxes. And this is why I think Melissa will be a Cat 5. We'll have the low wind shear. We'll have very warm ocean waters out there, 90 degrees or warmer, extending down to a depth. So even though the storm will slow down and stall for a prolonged period of time, that will lead to the increased probabilities of seeing some upwelling of cooler ocean waters from a depth getting pulled to the surface. Now, with it being very warm, deep water, probably not going to pull up that much cool water, okay? Upwelling probably won't be a huge deal on limiting its intensification possibilities. And then ideal upper level winds. Now, what I mean by that is as it drifts off towards the west in the western portions of the Caribbean, the upper level dynamics are ideal for perfect ventilation, meaning there's upper level divergence. There'll be upper level high pressure, meaning that all the quickly rising air will be evacuated out, meaning more and more rising motion will go underway. So it's just going to be, it's checking all the boxes here for a system to overperform. And I do expect rapid intensification. In fact, that is explicitly forecast in the National Hurricane Center's most recent outlook. So exactly what is that? We've seen this already 3 times. We had it with Umberto, we had it with Aaron, we had it with Gabrielle. so far this season, and this will likely be the 4th occurrence. In fact, there might have been even 5. I'll have to look back at that. But at least 35-mile-per-hour jump in wind speed, sustained winds, in 24 hours worth of time. 1 in 3 storms do undergo rapid intensification, and most Category 4 or 5 storms do see at least one period of rapid intensification. Here is the intensity forecast for Melissa. Again, not much change over the next 2.5 days. It's not until we get to Saturday, the jump from Saturday to Sunday, 35-mile-per-hour jump in sustained winds here. So explicitly forecast to go from a Cat 1 to a Cat 3 and then continuing to intensify. And this is the period of time that I think we see an overperformance here, and we see that jump to a Category 5. We need 156-mile-per-hour winds or greater to become a Cat 5, not outside the realm of possibility that we see that happen, especially with all the boxes being checked for the ingredients being available for the storm to take full advantage of. So here is the forecast track. We have the 8 o'clock advisory, but this is the 5 o'clock track. So we've got the intermediate advisory in terms of the updated stats. No change with that, except the drop in the forward speed down to 1 mile per hour. Now, the pressure has actually come up 2 millibars. At the 5 o'clock advisory, was sitting at 1,000. Now it's at 1,002. Typically, we see the pressure come down first, and then the wind speeds start to go up. So we've seen 0 change in that so far. And again, that's a symptom of the wind shear kind of holding the system at bay from intensifying just yet. But you can see here on the forecast track, as it bends to the north slowly, here we are by Saturday afternoon. So still 2 days out from now, 2.5 days out. We're at a Category 1 by that point. And then through the weekend, it intensifies all the way up to a Cat 4 as it drifts to the west, perhaps even southwest, losing some latitude here as we go into the early parts of next week. And by this point in time, we could easily be at a Category 5. And of course, if it drifts even farther to the west, where we've got that deeper, warmer ocean water, we could see it continuing to be on an intensification trend here. This only goes out 5 days. So we'll see what happens from there. Models here still pretty much all over the place. Okay, most of them in the short term, at least in the next 5 days, do stay within this forecast cone, I guess you could say, or forecast circle. But then from there, there's just a lot of uncertainty and a lot of divergence in trends. There's a cluster of models that take it due west into Central America, a few that before making landfall turn off to the north and then northeast. Several models do take it towards Cuba and certainly Jamaica as well. And then even a few like more that lean closer to the GFS model that so far has not been verifying quite well. Takes the storm in the short term, turning due north and then northeast over Haiti and the Dominican Republic. That looks less and less likely to be the solution here. It's more likely going to be a trend off to the west, which is what you saw with the hurricanes that are leaning more in line with what the European has been showing, as well as the Google AI models, the Google DeepMind models here showing that same kind of thing. And they've had a pretty good track record so far this season. So here's a look at the other models, the ensembles of the American and the GFS. And there's an even larger spread here, maybe a little smaller than when we visited this yesterday, but still takes it from the Eastern Pacific. There's only one member that takes it there, actually 2 almost there. And then most all take it off to the north and east after that. But how long it takes before it gets pulled off to the north and east, yet to be determined. It could be several days, meaning a slow-moving storm, prolonged, possibly catastrophic impacts to places like Jamaica, Cuba, and Haiti. And mostly regarding to the rainfall that it could see, up to 2 feet of rain, mudslide, rock slide threats, flash flooding. And then, of course, if you have a major hurricane there, you're going to have persistent winds driving up the storm surge in a lot of these spots as well. So let's now look at the operational runs of the American and the European here. We looked at this yesterday, and there were 2 models in total disagreement here, and you can see that that's still pretty much the case. Even as we get out just to Friday, we're seeing divergences already developing. The GFS leaning farther to the east, taking it more towards Haiti, and the highest geography of the entire Caribbean here, the mountainous terrain over the Dominican Republic, meaning increased shear, likely disrupting its circulation, which would be a good thing. But then we've got the European model here, again, still at Friday, not quite there to a hurricane just yet, right? It's going to remain a tropical storm for quite a while thanks to the shear. It'll take a couple days to back off. But then from there, we see the disruption in the flow and the circulation from the GFS as it passes over the higher terrain, then emerges out in the southwest Atlantic. Meanwhile, the European is much farther to the west here, to the southwest of Jamaica, a hurricane at this point on Monday, possibly a Cat 4, Cat 5 already at this point, and strengthening, impacting Jamaica just south of Cuba, likely a large storm at this point. GFS starting to gain latitude, and as we go out to Tuesday, the GFS is hightailing it out to the north and east, pulling away from land. Bermuda's right there, likely passing by south and east of Bermuda out to sea. European, again, this is another 24 hours that it basically hasn't moved. It's sitting on the far western side of Jamaica at this point. This would be a very bad scenario for Jamaica because, again, the worst of the storm is always east of that center. The center parked on the western side of the island, meaning the entire island is on the dirty side of the storm, strongest winds, highest surge, heaviest rain. Not a good scenario if the European model was to play out. Jumping out another few days, we've got the Euro finally pulling the storm to the north as we see a trough dipping in from the north, giving it that tug to the north and out of the Caribbean, over the Bahamas, and beginning to pull away to the north and east. Now, you may be wondering, what is this? This is going to be a very large upper-level low, that disturbance, that trough that's coming in from the northwest, acting to tug it north. Now, there are some renditions of models, not so much the European, but other long-range models, like the Canadian, that try to do something very interesting with this storm as we get out past the forecast period, past 7 to 8 days. Not going to show it to you here because it's unusual, but it's not unprecedented that we see it kind of get swept up by this trough and pulled back towards the eastern seaboard. It's a possibility, but unlikely, at least at this point. Something to watch. Tropical alerts are out there. We've got Jamaica under a tropical storm watch. These will likely be upgraded to hurricane watches and eventually warnings. Hurricane watches up for the far western portion of Haiti as well. Again, all of these will be upgraded to warnings in the next couple of days as we see that wind field drift towards the north, and notice it starts to expand as well as it intensifies. Then we start to see some hindrance here of, or some indication, I guess you could say, of hurricane force winds. At this point in time, going out to Sunday, very small hurricane force wind field here, but a large tropical storm force wind, and that all pushes up and over Jamaica. This is going to be the biggest problem, the forecast rainfall. Playing this out straight through next Thursday, we've got several areas approaching and probably surpassing 2 feet of rain. Most of Jamaica, western portions of Haiti, southern and eastern portions of Cuba as well, up and over a foot. This would be very bad news. On top of that, the wind. On top of that, the storm surge. Not good. We'll see if that hopefully changes. So the bottom line here is Melissa will likely overperform with abundant ocean heat energy and checking all the other boxes out there. Decreased wind shear, moist mid-levels, upper level divergence, all the boxes being checked. Now, we'll be slow-moving systems, so that means a prolonged and increased impact for all of those areas we mentioned. If and when it turns north, the long-range outlook on exactly where it goes still remains, at this point in time, low confidence. That's about a week out. Okay, so things will get clearer from there once it lifts out of the Caribbean. If it impacts the Bahamas or if it comes closer to the East Coast or just jets out to sea like we've seen as the theme of this season, staying out to sea, well, hopefully this persists with Melissa as well. All right, out in the Eastern Pacific, we still have one area of interest here as this drifts farther out into the open Pacific. Possibility of it becoming a named storm, less and less. Right now it stands at about 70% over the next 7 days. We'll see if that happens. So for right now, our scorecard remains unchanged after the addition of Melissa yesterday at 13 named storms. 4 hurricanes may have 5. 3 majors may have 4, as forecast right now from the Hurricane Center. And then the East Pac, we're staying at 17 named, 9 hurricanes, and 3 majors. All right, I teased earlier our tropical trivia tonight does pertain to Melissa and the possibility of it becoming a Cat 5. We'll get to that right after a quick break. Welcome back to Hurricane Hub Live. Tonight's tropical trivia. What is the only Atlantic hurricane season with 3 or more Category 5 storms? Was it 2017, 2020, 2005, or 2021? I'll have the answer for you tomorrow night on Hurricane Hub Live. Remember, we are here every night at 8 p.m. for the latest on the tropics. We'll see you right back here on Thursday night.